Good evening. I hereby call to order the May 18th, 2020 board meeting by teleconference of the Eagle Mountain Saginaw Board of Trustees and certify that we are in compliance with the provisions of sections 551.041 of Texas Government Code pursuant to public notice of this meeting and is allowed by the Texas Attorney General's issuance of temporary suspension to be certain open meeting laws due to the COVID-19 epidemic and closures. This time we'll take the official roll call. Dr. Marilyn Tolbert.
Present.
Paige Ring.
Present.
Tim Daughtry.
Present.
William Bowes.
Present.
Liz Hatley.
Present.
Donna Webb.
Present.
Dr. Jim Chadwell.
Present.
And I, Steve Nuke, am also present. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present. Thank you all for joining our teleconference this evening. We have many district and campus administrators who are on this call, which is also open to the public to join. We're thankful for the technology that allows us to conduct this meeting by teleconference, and we appreciate the Texas Attorney General temporarily suspending laws that allow us to meet this way during the health crisis. We have important business to attend to this evening. I would ask you to be patient as we conduct our meeting in this format. Board members and district leadership, please ensure your phones are muted. If you experience any technical difficulties, please reach out to the number provided to you earlier. Dr. Chadwell, will you now lead us in our opening pledges?
Yes, sir. United States flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Dr. Chadwell. Tonight, we want to begin by honoring the EMS ISD staff members who participated in the 2019-20 Teacher Leader Institute, Aspiring Leader Institute, and Aspiring Administrator Institute. Each year, current teachers, coordinators, department leaders, special program specialists, and others spend several hours and days attending our Leadership Institute. It is an honor to recognize them tonight and to say thank you to them for their commitment to leadership growth and to Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD. Dr. Dana Barnes and Ms. Lisa Dunn will say a few words and then read the names of the participants. Dr. Barnes?
Actually, President Newcomb, it's Lisa Dunn, and good evening, President Newcomb and Dr. Chadwell and members of the school board. We are really fortunate in our district to have such a robust leadership development program, and we are proud of the participants who have devoted their time and energy this year. And so thank you so much for the opportunity to recognize these leaders. First, I would like to recognize the EMS employees who participated in the Teacher Leader Institute. The Teacher Leader Institute is designed for teachers who desire to strengthen and deepen their leadership skills while serving as a campus teacher or staff member. And these participants were Shonda Dix, Kathy Hutchins, Adrian Kendrick, Carla Manzi, Courtney Marshall, Carrie Miller, Kylene Nash, Debbie Perry, Kimberly Prezioso, Rebecca Riddle, Michelle Sanford, and Brittany Talley. And we appreciate these teacher leaders. We wish we could be together to shake their hands, but we know that they're going to continue on and do great things. The next level of our Leadership Development Institute is the Aspiring Leader Institute. And ALI is designed for professionals who have taken some leadership opportunities and now desire to go further, to hone their leadership skills and become campus or district leaders or administrators. This group of 31 individuals met regularly to grow as leaders, and they are a very perceptive group, Dr. Chadwell and President Newcomb, who kept me on my toes, I'll tell you. And so these 31 participants in the Aspiring Leader Institute are Heather Abernathy, Laura Allen, Crystal Barnhill, Christina Brown, Tina Carino, Emily Crawford, Molly Davis, Taylor Delka, Shonda Dix, Corey Fairchild, Heather Guyana, Victor Garcia, Melissa Hassel, Whitney Hazelwood, Miley James, Amy Kirkland, Virginia Lopez, Cree McGill, Natalia Maldonado, Carla Manzi, Donald May, Brian Monk, Kylene Nash, Monica Padilla, Jana Price, Nicole Rassi, Rebecca Riddle, Crystal Searle, Randy Stewart, Jill Tucker, and Destiny Womack. And I'm very proud of the Teacher Leader Institute members as well as the Aspiring Leader Institute members. And Dr. Barnes?
Thank you very much. I'm extremely excited to be able to announce our fantastic leaders who participated in the Aspiring Administrator Institute. This institute focused strongly on being able to be a part of meeting our chiefs, our superintendent, our deputy superintendent, our director of communications. It is a wonderful opportunity for these individuals to continue their growth in leadership and to one day be a campus leader and a curriculum leader and a special programs leader of their choosing. They all have the ability to do so. These individuals are Mallory Bounds, Samantha Covington, Valerie Crowell, Brantley Gallman, Leslie Harvey, Danielle Malkowitz, James Parker, and Amy Watson. We want to thank our participants and leaders of EMS ISD. Sadly, we were not able to meet at the very end, but we are inviting every one of these individuals back next year to any session that they missed. And again, thank you so much, President Newcomb and Dr. Chadwell, for allowing us to honor these great leaders tonight.
Well, thank you, Dr. Barnes and Lisa Dunn. We appreciate that. We appreciate these committed to growth and committed to getting better and making our district better. Thank you for your leadership in this area, and we look forward to each and every one of these adding to and helping our district in the future. Next on the agenda is oral reports. Individuals desiring to address the board regarding an item on an agenda for an open meeting or to address the board on general matters or to submit a completed public comment request form by 4:45 p.m. today. The form is located on the EMS ISD website. At this time, are there any individuals, Dr. Chadwell, who have requested to comment?
No, sir, there are not.
There are no requests for public comment. Therefore, we will move forward with our posted agenda. We'll now move into the report section of the meeting. And next up is agenda item 2B, the operations report. Mr. Cleet Welch.
Yes, tonight we'd like to go start with Copper Creek Elementary. And if you look on page 12, that's where this report will begin. And then we'll move to actually page 14, where you'll see the first picture. And that is the picture of the front entrance, pointing out areas where the entrance, you see the soffits on the roof line, you see the standing seam roof in, you see the glazing around the library. And on the far left, you can also see where the gym and the brick and rock are going up, progressing up. On page 15, you have the main lobby and the finishes. On the first picture, you see the gray glazing. It's in 3 different locations. It blends in very nicely. It's a very, it's a warm and very light area. So when you come in, it has some of that LED lighting that really brightens up the large area. Then when you look to the ceiling, you see the wood slats that mimic the clouds, and that's the lighting, some of the lighting that I was talking about. On page 16, we have the tornado shelter. some pictures of that, the lighting, the ductwork, and then you have a large picture where you're just really focusing on that masonry wall that was built in there that has the restrooms, the control room, and it has the HVAC units up in the mezzanine area on that. So that's progressing very nicely. On page 17, you have more pictures of the gym masonry and how it's moving along. No problems there. That will catch up and with the rest of the building on this part of the project. On page 18, this is between the two academic areas. This is where a large pickup, where parents pick up students. And you can see that the sidewalk, flat work's going in. You can see some light poles, the downspouts, some, what I'd say finished work you're starting to see. On page 19, again, you got your flat work. You have the playground system. It went in very nicely. You have the basketball court in the back and with the goals that are in place. On page 20, we have Boswell High School. We'll focus here on the agricultural science building and the concrete masonry blocks that are going up. So most of that is in place, and we have some roofing structures starting to go in on this project. Still on slated to be open for the school year coming up on this part of the project. On 21, you see the new mechanical building, the electrical room. It's progressing, so it's closer to the stadium. It's by, right by the concession stand. It'll be outside of the stadium, but that's where the new leads will come in from the west side of the campus. Turf installation, have a few pictures of that. You have Highland, Creekview, and Ed Wilkie in these pictures, and different stages of development. Highland's the one you see from the road. You see the most work going on. It's more visible, but feel good about these. Ed Wilkie has been staged, and they'll move to it next. It was one of those schools in the Fort Worth city limits. It took a little bit longer to get going. More pictures on page 23 of turf installation. You can see the sites have been mobilized. Again, they're in the city of Fort Worth, but they will, in fact, Chisholm Trail High School, if you've been by it lately, getting ready for graduation, but a lot of dirt work is moving on that one. And then when you move to Saginaw High School, I'll just repeat the same thing. They're excavating, they're getting ready for moisture conditioning, and moving right along on that project. Track resurfacing. So at Saginaw and Chisholm, those items have been completed. They've been striped, and Boswell was the last one of that group, but it's now been completed. So they look like a brand new track, and they're ready to go for the beginning of the school year. On page 26, this is kind of the transformation, I like to say, at Saginaw High School. You have a before, and you can see that the hallway, it's not very bright. It's got the carpet, it's kind of dated. And then you can see where it's been removed. And then you see the new VCT tile and how bright the hallway and how that looks. And that's without the wax on it yet. So it'll brighten and shine a little bit more than that. On page 27, here's showing Prairie Vista. I believe we're looking at the band hall. And so you can see where it's been, the tile has been removed, or the old carpet's been removed, and the new carpet's in, and you see a hallway picture. Okay, I guess I did this one on purpose. I'll show you the carpet, but I've got the light turned off, and then when you look at the finished product, we turn the lights on to make it look better. But it does make a difference, probably not as dramatic as that picture shows at Comanche Springs, but it does look good. And on page 29, just some updates here on the maintenance addition and the multiple security projects. That procurement method is going to be recommended as an action item tonight. And we'll get started on that. If you remember, this is a consolidation, streamlining of all warehouse services. So that's the reason we're putting that addition on there, be more efficient. The NOC, the Network Operations Center, that has been cleaned out as of today. So all the records have been moved. They were moved last week, and both of the top area and where the electrical feed's coming in, all that has been cleaned up, and it is ready for the construction group to arrive. Tennis record, we're still waiting on those wind slats, but we should get on that pretty soon. Central office, continue those design meetings, still slated for somewhere in the fall, late fall, maybe winter time. And we're still meeting with VOK on the Eagle Mountain High School. Those meetings continue with the city of Fort Worth, getting the preliminary development, what requirements they're going to need, and they always have concerns that we have to address and continue to work on. I think that's the end of my presentation. If there's any questions, I'd entertain the answer them.
Thank you, Cleet, for that report. Does anybody have a question for Mr. Welch? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Cleet. Next is agenda item 2C1, the finance report. Mr. Shirley.
Good evening. Hope you can all hear me. I'll try not to cut out this time like I did last time. The district received the April estimates from the Tarrant County Appraisal District. These are very preliminary numbers. It is possible that there could be a substantial difference between these numbers and the certified numbers we receive in July. The taxable assessed value was significantly lower than what we had expected. We're still, I mean, there's 100 different rumors as to why the numbers are so low. We had a record year in new construction, but it appears there were a significant number of properties that received no increase in taxable assessed value from the January 1st, 2019 value. The impact is not as dramatic as it would have been under the old system. Our Tier 1 revenue actually won't change. It's just a bigger share for the state. Tier 2, we do have some golden pennies in there that would allow us to keep additional money that we would have received if the TAVs had been higher, and also the copper pennies would have produced a little bit. That money would have helped. There's no question about it. But all in all, state aid and local taxable value or local property taxes are pretty comparable regardless of how much TAV goes up. We're still waiting. There were a lot of unusual fluctuations in the exemptions. Rob and I both did some quick analysis and then looked a little deeper, and those I think have problems. Some of them look high. If they are reduced, then it's possible that we could see an increase in our taxable assessed value. We're just waiting to see what that looks like. We'll have a better idea. I think the next set comes out on the 22nd of May. We'll see what those look like. The comptroller's office will then look at these. They'll do a test and they will assign a value. The value is normally less than our levy because we've had some pretty significant supplemental or last minute additions. I'm anticipating, given the large number of protests, we can anticipate that will happen again. That's a nice little cushion that we tend to get in the first part of September. One of the areas that I wasn't very happy about, based on what we had anticipated the growth of the taxable assessed value to be, we had expected a reduction in the maintenance and operations tax rate of 10 cents or more. The actual reduction is based on our increase compared to what they anticipated the state would be, which was about, I think, a little over 4%. Because our initial values are only sitting at 6.5%, our compression is only 3.5 cents. So the community is not going to get the break that I'm sure some of them were expecting based on the promises that were made in the last legislative session. Having said that, there is still going to be a reduction, and because of the number of properties that did not change, the reduction will be a reduction in real taxes. Debt service, the reduced TAVs do have a direct impact. we had projected a 5% increase in terms of making our payments. So we're good there, but not having 10 or 11% and only having 6% takes away a lot of our capacity. So at this point in time, we are looking at the refundings first and waiting for some revised numbers and see what we have in May and June before we pull the trigger on any new funding. And we will have a report for the board before we do anything in those areas. So we will do, right now, the taxable or the tax-free refunding will produce about $9 million in savings. The taxable refunding will produce just under $3 million in savings. So if we were to pull the trigger right now, we would save the community just over $11 million. We are proceeding with that. We'll be going through ratings in the next week to 10 days and getting the final documents ready. And we will keep the board appraised as to the market and our activities. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Shealy. The report that you gave us, I guess that's the report that you normally get. The one that followed on pages 32 through 46. Yes,
sir. That's the one that we get. And the normally, if you look at that, starting on page 17, that taxable assessed number, you started with almost 15 billion, and then the partial exemptions and the absolute exemptions pulled it down to just at 11.8 billion. And then they have an estimated net taxable value of 11.8. That number is usually adjusted for protests, but at this point in time, if you go to the next page, which is, I think I'm showing, I just lost the page numbers.
I think it'd probably be 35 if it's the next page in our packet.
Yeah, I'm not sure why I lost the numbers, but anyway, it is, they don't show any properties under protest, which in April reports over the past several years, there have always been properties under protest. The people that represent them, taxpayers, get those out real quick because of the volume they're doing. After that, there are just a number of pages that contain information, and that information will provide information on exemptions and the makeup. We wanted to include the report because that information is the detail that we go through to look at it and find out what's going on.
So the numbers that are for new construction, which is page 38 in our packet and page 471 of 501 on the report that you included.
Right.
That number we think is 698 million of taxable value added.
That's what it says, yes. Mm-hmm. And our total value increase is about that amount.
Just a comment, Mr. President, we have reached out to Tarrant Appraisal District and have inquired about some of these numbers, because if we kind of forget what's been happening since January of 2020 and look purely at 2019, the market at that time, we were building like crazy all over the district, commercial and residential. But in addition, we were seeing growth, and it was definitely a seller's market for the community. And so to look at the numbers that we see in terms of the lack of growth in property values based upon, again, the January 1, 2020 is not really comprehensible. We know that there was a significant amount of pressure on the appraisal district, and there have been inquiries at the state level to allow the COVID-19 crisis to be considered in terms of freezing taxes or making adjustments. It was reported by the Attorney General that would not be appropriate, as it had been with the with the hurricanes and the South Texas area. This is not a physical destruction. Obviously, pandemic is very different. And in some cases, depending on what the property is, for example, if it's a grocery store chain or a Walmart, compared to a Best Buy, you could actually have growth in certain commercial markets because they were considered essential services. And so it's not a very linear kind of analysis. And so these are preliminary numbers. They do feel confident with the numbers, which actually concerns me more than we'll look at these things. But seeing just anecdotally the number of people that have had their property stagnate or even decrease in value slightly, it's very, very odd to us what we're seeing. So again, we know the M&O side of it is buffeted to some degree from the House Bill 3 school finance system. It's the debt service side that we have to manage into the future.
A follow-up question on that is, Paige. So do we think, if we think the reasoning was COVID related for the statements that got sent out, do we anticipate a COVID reaction to approving disputes as well?
I don't know, and my statement there is purely my opinion. They have stated that they did not make any adjustments in terms of the assessment of property based on COVID. It's been just the opposite. That's the only logical thing I could look at of why property values would stagnate or decrease. And so at this time, they're not admitting that that's it at all. So they are worried about the number of protests that could come out, but I don't necessarily think this is going to decrease the amount of protests at all.
I tend to agree, Ms. Ringvet. These values are supposed to be the values as of January 1st. So that was before the pandemic was declared and the impact hit the country. Those values should have absolutely no adjustment for the pandemic. It's inexplicable to me when I've done my research and looked at different resources. The average residential property in Tarrant County went up between 5 and 9%. And yet our existing properties are showing an average market increase of less than 1%. So I can't come up with a plausible explanation as to how that could be. But they're the numbers we have. They're what we deal with. If things get better, great, but I wouldn't count on it.
Mr. Shirley, we're saying though, I think your comment was we still had enough funds to move ahead with our current schedules and our current plans?
Yes, sir. The only thing that I was hoping was that we could accelerate more projects and save money from that standpoint. I think this is going to hamper that a little bit. But once again, we're going to have to make a decision as to what the TAVs are going to be like next year. And that's going to be one that we're going to watch construction very closely in the district. And, you know, it started out really strong. I think it's tapered a little bit, but we need to look very closely at what the TAVs are going to be as of January 1st, 2021, to make sure that we manage the bond program as best we can. And those decisions do not have to be made until this fall. So we're just watching it very closely, but for the moment, we're okay. We just can't accelerate anything.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, that'll move us to agenda item. Thank you, Mr. Shirley. That'll bring us to agenda item 2D1, the Education Services Report. Ms. Gloria Mabry.
Welcome, Superintendent Chadwell, President Newcomb, and members of the school board. The presentation tonight is about Eagle Mountain Saginaw's Gifted and Talented Services. I am Lori Mabry, Coordinator of Advanced Academics, and Stacy Summerhill, Executive Director for Curriculum Instruction, is also here. We are starting on page 48 in your packet. On page 49, we start with Aspire 2022 because it gives us direction for the Gifted and Talented program, especially in the strategic objective number 3 and strategy number 4. Page 50. The other document that GT Services has to use as a guide is the GT State Plan from TEA. The GT State Plan is divided into 5 sections, and 2 of the sections directly relate to GT curriculum, service design, and curriculum and instruction. Starting with service design, there are 2 standards to consider. 3.3, GT services are comprehensive and challenging in the 4 core areas, and 3.4, GT students work together as a group, with other students, and independently. Page 51. The other section of the GT State Plan for us to consider is curriculum and instruction. Here we are looking at 3 standards, 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3. 4.1 talks about challenging learning experiences in the 4 core curriculum areas. 4.2 talks about students pursuing areas of interest through research. And 4.3 talks about how the learning experiences lead to advanced products and performances, which is the basis of our Evening with the Experts night. Page 52. Now we're going to review the GT program in Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD. Page 53. We have taken Aspire 2022 and the GT State Plan, which form the basis of our GT curriculum and are used in our GT program. Here's an overall glance of the GT program in a flow chart. We build the foundation starting with PACE and move upward, building depth, complexity, and higher orders of thinking at each level. We move from PACE to GT Human in middle school, to 9th grade GT in a pre-AP English class, to AP Capstone, which is taken either in 10th and 11th or 11th and 12th. The 9th grade pre-AP GT English 1 class is new this year, and it will be offered at all of the high school campuses. Page 54, PACE. Our theme this year was systems, and next year it will be determined during curriculum writing done in July with the PACE teachers. In previous years, we have had themes such as inspiring kindness. Our curriculum for PACE is developed upon William and Mary units. Those are from the Center for Gifted Education from the College of William and Mary. One of the things we included this year was depth and complexity, which is a strategy from Sandra Kaplan. Those strategies take thinking both deeply and with complexity, and then moves thinking towards concept attainment. The last thing, or the next thing that PACE is going to be incorporating into our curriculum is Think Law. Think Law is what is used in 7th and 8th grade GT Humanities. We purchased the curriculum for it, K-12 this year, and Think Law incorporates critical thinking through examination of law and real court cases. And the last piece of curriculum we have is our Evening with the Experts, where we show off our research and the skills taught throughout the year. Page 55. PACE currently. We currently have 6 PACE teachers for our 15 elementary schools, who those 6 PACE teachers teach at either 2 or 3 campuses each. Teacher 1, Teacher 4, and Teacher 6 all have 3 schools each. Teacher 2, Teacher 3, and Teacher 5 have 2 schools each, but then they serve the program in various ways. Teachers 2 and 5 go to a 3rd school to help PACE teachers 1 and 4. They will teach a grade level or grade levels at the 3rd school to help that teacher be able to get all of the students in. Teacher 2 and Teacher 3 both also help with secondary GT testing as needed. Teacher 3 helps the district with differentiation, and she organizes the district's GT testing. So as you can see, of our 6 PACE teachers, they serve approximately 557 students. They have a lot to do. Page 56 shows one teacher's weekly schedule currently. She goes to 3 schools, and what you have is a circle chart of the time and what she is doing at each of those schools. At Bryson and Eagle Mountain, she has time for 3 of our services. She's able to do pull-out, she's able to do testing and planning, and she's able to do first grade. But not the 4th service that we would like to start having, which is push-in and collaboration. At Saginaw, she has no time for push-in and collaboration or kindergarten and first grade, which is where another PACE teacher comes in to help at Saginaw. As you can see, there's no time in her schedule for push-in or collaboration, and that is one of the things we would like to add. Push-in means to go into a classroom and help with a small group of GT students or higher ability students in the back. For example, if she could be helping one GT student with research at their desk, she could pull a group of students in the back of the classroom and extend the lesson that the regular teacher is currently teaching. She could help that teacher teach to a higher level lesson. There's many elements included in push-in that we would like to also help the schools with. Collaboration is the strategy where the teacher helps the campus at PLCs or is there when a teacher needs help with teaching a GT student or a higher level lesson, or she's there to conduct professional development for the campus after school by doing a book study or learning about a new strategy. Push-in and collaboration are some of our missing pieces. Page 57. That same teacher that had 3 schools this year, we would like to be able to have that one teacher at one school. So that one teacher with 3 schools was serving 123 students. Next year, we'd like her to serve 30 or so, 5 days at one campus with 30 plus students. We would like every elementary campus to have this schedule and have a qualified GT teacher. This PACE teacher will have time for push-in and collaboration, has time for kindergarten and first grade groups, pull-out lessons with groups of GT students, and has time for testing and planning. Page 58. Our goal for the PACE program is to have a PACE teacher who spends approximately 50% of her time in pull-out services. On each one of the next 4 slides, we're taking that same circle of time, and the 50% you will see again and again. So this first part is about the pull-out itself. These services will be with 1st through 5th graders, where the students are doing research and learning critical and creative thinking skills. So the teachers working with kindergarten students in March, April, and May. I'm going to talk about kindergarten some more in a minute. First grade will be in a pull-out for 30 minutes every week, and 2nd through 5th grade will be in a pull-out for 2 hours every week. On page 59, the next part of our graph of time is the kindergarten time that the teacher will have. The PACE teacher will spend approximately 11% of her time with kindergarten. She will be going into the classroom to conduct activities with the class to help both the classroom teacher and herself identify kindergarten GT students. She will be testing the students that have been referred in January, December, and February, and she will be serving the identified GT kindergarten students in March, April, and May. Page 60. Our next piece is push-in and collaboration. Push-in and collaboration are brand new for campuses and PACE teachers, and this has not existed previously in PACE schedules. Push-in and collaboration should be approximately 21% of the PACE teacher's schedule. Push-in and collaboration will give an opportunity for PACE teachers to work alongside the classroom teacher to prepare learning experiences and support the classroom teachers and GT students that are clustered in the class. PACE teachers will have an opportunity to be a part of campus PLCs and help with the data of GT and advanced students. PACE teachers will have an opportunity to be on the campus and be a true part of the campus culture. And on page 61 is the last piece of our time, which is testing and planning. Testing and planning will be about 18% of the PACE teacher schedule. This will include differentiation for GT learners, collaboration with the other PACE teachers through mentoring and learning, Professional development, both on the home campus and for the district, and assessment of potential GT students. On page 62, we start to talk about talent pool services. One of the things that we want to add at all elementary schools, starting with Title I elementaries, is talent pool services. Eagle Mountain Saginaw has had pieces of talent pool services in many variations throughout the years. Now we want to have a very systematic process where these students can get served. The GT program needs to have equity and representation, and that's what the graph on this page shows. And this needs to be within our demographic groups. For example, if you look at the Hispanic population of the district, it is roughly 40%. But then you compare it to the GT population, Hispanic population, which is 25%. We have a disparity in equity between the GT group and the regular population group. Talent pool services will help address these gaps in equity. They will be in first and or second grade classrooms. One of the things about this equity deficiency, Todd Kettler, a professor at Baylor University and one of the authors of the GT state plan, has stated that 85% of Texas school districts are out of compliance with their equity numbers. So the majority of districts around us, we're all in the same boat. And the GT state plan, under the student assessment section 2.25, states that the population of the gifted and talented service program is closely reflective of the population of the total district and or campus. On slide 63, with talent pool services, the method of identification will be a universal screener and data that we get from that universal screener. We currently do 2 universal screeners, one at kindergarten and one at second grade. We're going to use those assessments and use the data from them to look at the students, and they will be chosen to be in the talent pool based on their scores on the universal screener. This is an example. The criteria line might be 120, so the school and the PACE teacher could look for the students that fall in the range of 112 to 118. What these services will be is a series of 10 lessons that create background knowledge for the students' critical thinking. These 10 lessons will be from the Kingor Observation Inventory from Bertie Kingor, who is a G2 guru. So one of the ways we're going to work with our equity issue that we have is through these talent pool services. On slide 64, on page 64, sorry, future considerations, what we would like is to have you all approve the hiring of 10 additional full-time employees to provide one PACE teacher per campus, hired in a phase-in process. This phase-in process will be not 10 teachers right this minute. It will be teachers, and it will grow, the PACE program will grow according to student need. So in the school year 2021 and the school year 21-22, we would like to have 4 new PACE teachers at both of those years. And then we want 3 years for the year 2022 and 2023, because we will have Lake Country. So it's actually an additional 11 teachers at that point. The outcome of this, the goal of this, is to have 1 PACE teacher at each elementary school. And what we need for that is mentoring and team building and professional development opportunities for those teachers. On page 65, the expected outcomes, we would like to utilize varied assessments to ensure equity in identification processes. We want increased instructional support for differentiation in the classroom, and the PACE teacher supports the campus PLC process to address the needs of GT students. So in closing, on page 66, continue with our mission of creating a culture of excellence and connecting to the work in Aspire 2021-2025 as we move forward. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
I feel like there will be a few questions. I can start with one. What would the district expect if we add 11 new teachers? I'm curious about. I know you talked about some expectations, but does this end up with where does it end up as they graduate or on the back end of this?
Well, remember that we would like for it to be a phase-in process. So in reality, next year it will be 4 teachers and the year after that will be 4 teachers. What exactly were you meaning by graduation?
Well, I mean, we're going to be adding 11 teachers over 3 years to work with 30 kids per campus. So what would be the end result that we would expect? I mean, what are we trying to get out of this program at the end of it by adding that many teachers to the mix of the teachers on that campus?
Well, we want our PACE students to be more prepared for the GT Humanities course, which then makes the GT Humanities students more prepared for both the 9th grade and then AP Capstone. So in the end, we're trying to up our level of rigor for the students as they go through the continuum of courses towards graduation.
And what kind of experience will we expect? I find it, and I always have found it, and I had 3 kids that went through the program, that you can identify those kids in kindergarten and 1st grade. What proof do we have that is actually a proper identification of students that young?
Well, the screeners and the testing that we use are normed throughout the nation. So those should help at those levels. And then as they move into the middle schools, and then again, as they move into high school, they continue to grow their critical thinking skills and the things that they need. And especially right now, the social emotional learning that the students need. These teachers are there to help them with the things that they go through. Like, for instance, right now our AP students are going through this brand new AP process. So I've been working with the teachers on how to help the students through this new AP process. So the whole way through, the students need this touchstone teacher to be able to talk to be able to be in a group by themselves independently and work with other students so that they get that feeling of self-belonging, because oftentimes these students are by themselves in classes through no choice of, that's just the way that master schedules happen. And sometime during the day, the school day, these students need to be back together to be with like peers within their intellectual levels. It's not all day, but sometime in the day, they need to have that group.
Just a comment on the assessment system. Our assessments that we have at very young ages, these are assessments that are very common among other school districts. Dr. Kettler, that she mentioned earlier, is a person that originally was out of North Texas, so we had a lot of access with him while he was there. And then when he moved to Baylor, we've continued our relationship. And so we've reviewed our assessment system, and the one area that we feel like needs to be shorn up is what's called non-linguistic inventories. So if you have someone that's not English as a first language, and a lot of times they may have difficulty simply because they don't have the language to express or to identify something that a child that is English as a first language would have. Therefore, use non-linguistic inventories as a first glance, the universal screener that she was talking about, so that you can do further assessment. Just a comment, our numbers range significantly in our district. We have as low as 15 students in one school and as high as 79 in another school. And so what we see is some significant deviation between those, and we do see a relationship with socioeconomic status and identifications. That may also be in line with what we were talking about earlier in terms of communication and vocabulary and those types of things. One thing that we're not able to do now that we would be able to with a more full ranged gifted and talented program at the elementary level is to work with that talent pool that she talked about earlier. Currently, they do their very best to get in the PACE pullout times, but does not have the time to do the push-in or the kindergarten work or the work with talent pool. We do believe that that would have significant effect, and in order to evaluate that, we did look at what other school districts are doing in our neighboring area, namely just as close to this area would be Northwest and Keller, but also others such as Grapevine, Colleyville, and others that do have a full-time PACE teacher at every school. And so we talked about 30 earlier, but the numbers at complete build-out should have upwards to 80, 90%. We should be identifying a larger number of kids percentage-wise at some of our schools than we are now.
This is Paige. I had a follow-up question, I guess, to Steve's question, but so if we're identifying them in kindergarten and first grade, we have more kids not coming to our district that weren't here when they were in kindergarten and first grade. So what are we doing to identify kids that may not have been here through that initial identification process, or kids we just might have missed the first time go around? I mean, I think it's conceivable that we didn't catch them all.
They can be referred at any point in any time, any of the grade levels. So referral, if they come in middle of the year, we'll catch them as we can whenever they transfer in, like especially if they're coming in with already being identified GT, we will catch them and put them into class as soon as possible. Also, when they walk into the school, one of the things we do is if they want to be referred, the next big referral period, we will get them into testing. So they might have to wait a little while, but it's usually not very long.
Just a comment here is on personal experience. We moved from another district, and there was a referral that came from the classroom teacher for that assessment. And so we had that situation where we had that referral where this talent pool would be another opportunity to identify students that those teachers are not able to do push in into those classes to identify additional kids as you were just talking about, Ms. Ring, of students that may qualify. And so they need to be on our radar. But we also have some other screeners that we do that make certain students kind of stand apart in terms of their performance. And we do referrals there as well. I do want to remark that not all kindergartners that later on will be qualified to be in the GT program necessarily qualified in kindergarten. Just from a maturity level, they may not actually try on the exam at all. And so we do have to come back to those kids often in first grade to determine if that's the fact. They may not complete the test. They may not really get why they're doing it. There's a lot of maturity factors early on. So coming back to those students, we feel like is very important.
And then the other question I had as well is, what about at the upper levels? It seems very concentrated at the elementary school level. Which is wonderful for those kids, but I've also heard comments, from parents in the community about, what else are we doing? I know we've added some curriculum changes, but are there other additional plans to serve our secondary students?
Well, starting this next school year, we will have that 9th grade GT ELAR GT class. It will only have GT students in it, and that class will be at all 3 high schools. And then after that, we will have AP Capstone and the AP classes themselves. But AP Capstone is definitely rigorous GT definite work that they are doing. And they take that class in 10th and 11th or 11th and 12th. Plus, when you get to high school, you have all the wonderful electives that are there that the students can finally really branch out into.
Is it okay if I interject in here and explain that in the last 5 years, we have added humanities to the middle school. We've added capstone seminar as well. And then this year, the 9th grade. course. So we've really been working to beef up our curriculum and opportunities for our GT children.
I guess I was specifically more curious on any type of a pull outside for the social and emotional piece, as well as that collaboration piece for our teachers, giving them some time to do that piece.
The challenge that we have at the high school level specifically is the classes simply can't make. Once you factor athletics and fine arts and any other specialty classes, it is incredibly difficult to do that at the high school level. And I just mentioned that because it's something that we've tried to do, but it's just difficult to try to make that happen. At the middle school level, we've seen in that anecdotally to a great deal with the humanities program. We don't disagree that that is a desire and something we're looking at. We have talked to a number of districts and those that are very well known for their gifted and talented programs. Unfortunately, they run into some of the same challenges because simply you run into a choice model. Elementary is not a choice model, it's a directive model of what classes and programs are in, starting in 6th grade, obviously, and as you go on, you get more and more choices, and so those choices become the more variety, more things to choose from, and at that point, standardization it becomes increasingly more difficult.
Thank you.
I do want to comment, and I know that Ms. Ring and I probably have some personal knowledge in this area. We've mentioned AP Capstone a few times. Not all students are going to take AP Capstone, but in my opinion, it is one of the single best things College Board's done in the last several years, and a lot of the social emotional, a lot of the collegial things that we see early on with our students in elementary is rekindled at that capstone level, and you usually follow your peers for 2 years, so it's not a 1-year course, it's a 2-year course. So by the time you're at the end of that 2nd year, you really get to know those kids, and it's also multiple grade level. A student can enter into that in 10th or 11th or 12th for that matter if they just go 1 year, and so you have that discipline as well of students working with other peers that may be older than them and may be more experienced. And I've seen that myself in terms of the quality of work that's coming out of that program at all 3 of our high schools.
So if the score you were mentioned earlier was 120, and other districts are also around us using the same criteria, if our GT students transfer to a neighboring district or a district in Tarrant County, or they come in here, are they automatically then included in the corresponding schools program, or is that district by district?
It is district by district. In our case, we do acknowledge identification of GT students coming from other schools. We obviously do some verification in that area. There are some school districts that do not acknowledge other school districts' identification. In some districts, the cut score, and there is a direct correlation with socioeconomics. Those that are in, say, have 5% or less low socioeconomic, their cut score may be exceedingly higher. In fact, they may have 30%, and the district in my mind right now has 30% of the kids that would identify under a cut score that we or HEB or Birdville, all 3 of those districts that have similar, we actually have fewer economically disadvantaged, but we're in that 40 to 50, 60% range. Lori, anything you want to add to that?
You're absolutely right. Throughout the state of Texas, they do not have a statewide cut score, so you have to watch the students that are coming in from the school districts, other areas, because our cut score is not 120. Our cut score is different, and everybody's cut score is different. There's a school district in Dallas that has a cut score starting at about 140. So the numbers change throughout the state of Texas, depending upon what they want their program to be.
And I would think a higher cut score could also limit the numbers in it. So maybe they don't want 80 kids at one school in it, so the score would then naturally limit that to a lower number.
in the school district I'm thinking of, it's a huge number, but that school district's population is very, very different from normal school districts.
But you are correct. They do use the cut scores in order to decrease the total numbers in the program. Yes, sir.
Lori, this is Liz Hatley. Don't we have a bevy of tests that we give because of what Steve stated in regards to trying to pinpoint their intelligent quotient?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. We start with something like that universal screener, and then if we get a student that is close and we want to look at their nonverbal, or if we want to look at how they do on their mathematical talents, their verbal talents, we have all sorts of tests that we can pinpoint that will help us pinpoint exactly where a student's gifts lie. So oftentimes those first round of tests are just that. They're the first rounds of tests. We give a lot of testing.
And then we update those as they're updated with new norms, correct?
Yes, ma'am. And we are constantly looking for testing that will help to identify better the demographic groups that we need to identify better. So looking at the nonverbal type testing and making sure we're using the best kind.
And I want to underscore, we do want to widen, but we do not decrease the cut score based upon any group specifically. We're just widening the use of tests. You know, not all kids come to us identical, and you can have kids in the same family that are not identical. So having a, as you described, Ms. Hatley, a bevy of tests to be able to look at it from multiple angles is really key. So you add to that any kind of language deficits, English language deficits that may exist. It's really important that we're able to do that. One of the other things that the Pushin model assists with is helping students basically know some of those things that you need to know of how how to take a test. You can't just walk, not all kids can walk in there. That may be a very frightening environment for them, whereas other kids have zero problems at all. And so just having them have a comfort level of the kinds of questions that they would be asked so that they are able to perform and really give us a good, transparent example of what they're able to achieve.
So this is Marilyn Tolbert. So that was my question. At this point, all we rely on is testing. So someone that does, as you said, Jim, Dr. Chadwell, as you, someone that that has limited vocabulary or just has test anxiety, we are going to begin to look for that. We aren't going to just use a test to determine giftedness.
This is true, and we have been using tests like the Nagliari, which is a non-linguistic inventory.
Okay.
So we have been using that, admittedly. However, we are relooking at our assessments to broaden those and to make sure that we're addressing what you're talking about. We really think that's one of the biggest challenges, because if statistically you really should have no effect of any kind of ethnicity or economic disadvantaged status in gifted, this is something that is considered, you know, the whole nature versus nurture environment. This is really something that should be represented naturally in the student population.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
That is one of the ideas behind the talent pool. If you're a student coming into kindergarten, first grade, and you've never been exposed to checkers or puzzles, your logical analytical side may be a little underdeveloped, and we would like to help those students blossom that side. So that's part of what we're going to get at.
And you just hit on something, and I can't go into the details because of FERPA, but I can think of a kid right now. The first time this child was tested, they did not have that exposure. The only change in the second time was exposure to puzzles and patterns. And the second time their scores jumped so high that they actually went back and reviewed it to say, how did this happen? Because this looks like nothing like the first ones. It's just simply they had never been exposed to that. And then all of a sudden their mind started going that direction. And this child's ability to connect patterns and see patterns in disparate information was exceedingly high, and all of a sudden they more than easily qualified, but the first time they didn't because they didn't have that experience.
Right. That's what I was kind of getting at, trying to make sure that we're addressing that.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, and I think that's the beauty of expanding with the teachers, is giving them more time to have these talent pools, because then we can kind of level the playing field. And like you said, Dr. Chadwell, expose them to things they've never been exposed to.
That is talent pool, exactly.
I do want to thank our PACE teachers. I'm sure several of them, if not all, are listening right now. They've done such an incredible job, and we know every year we enjoy seeing the evening with the experts. I love going into the GT classes in our elementary schools to see the kind of work that's being done there, and they've done a really, really good job. And one reason why we're not going for everybody at one time is really to match our population. And so if we come back to you next year and our numbers haven't grown, then the argument for additional teachers may not be as strong as if we have started to see that growth. But also we want to make sure that the environment that's been established within our PACE program continues, because it's a very positive environment. We simply want to expand the things that are possible that are not possible now within the confines of time.
All right, are there any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Mabry, for that report. We appreciate your efforts very much, and look forward to gifted and talented program growth.
Thank you.
Our last report of the superintendent, and I realize we're running a little past 6, but it is the human resources report. Dr. Dawkins.
Hi, good evening. President Nuke, members of the school board, Dr. Chadwell. I wanted to draw your attention to page 68, and that's the 2020-2021 additional staffing report 3. We have continued to work collaboratively with all departments on additional priority staffing requests. And as you can see, with the exception of 2 FTEs, all positions directly impact the classroom. And actually, we do have on there, following Ms. Mabry's presentation, the request for 4 of our GT teachers. You can also see on there that we have several CTE positions. We're just seeing a tremendous amount of growth and interest in those classes, and that does generate funding as well. So you'll see quite a few of the positions are dual funded, either federal CTE or some title funding. So we are requesting, although we're very aware of our budgetary confines at this time and working with our finance department, we would request permission to post the positions, and then we're also making decisions as we go along on potentially holding and just looking at some efficiencies in staffing as well. So I would be happy to answer any questions.
I've got one. What exactly does a TCU intern, what is their job within the district?
Okay, I'm happy to address that, and I know Dr. Chadwell can too. So we have a partnership, a relationship with TCU where we have employees, they're teachers, and they are enrolled in the master's level program seeking their educational administration degree. And what we do is we're able to get basically an administrator intern, so someone that's kind of on the job training, if you will, as an AP, and then it's we just continue their teacher salary. Currently, we have 2 FTEs, and we would request an additional one. So we place these teachers, actually, they're our teachers currently, we place them strategically at schools and campuses to support the campus administration. So it's a win-win. It's a benefit for us to get an extra a set of hands at the administration level on the campus, and then also for them to have hands-on learning.
And Dr. Dawkins, it's kind of like a grow your own program. We first became involved with this several years ago. And since that time, we've hired a number of these TCU interns for administrative positions. Although there is no guarantee that they get an administrative position, it just so happens that we've been able to hire all of those individuals, and they've done a very good job in that process. But it's only for that 1 year. And so this year we're able to add an additional person at Marine Creek Middle School. The population is going to be a little bit over 1,000. And so rather than hiring a full-time third assistant principal, we'll have a TCU intern placed there for this next year.
And I guess when the total down there proposed cost is $1.7 million, but some of it's broken down between, I guess, different funding sources. So is there a way to know how much is coming out of the local budget and how much is coming out of the different, when they're split like that? It's obvious when they just have one funding source.
We can actually create this page with that delineated and send that to you in this week's update. But just for reference point, just here in the meeting, Dr. Dawkins, if you don't mind going through and just giving a rough percentage of how much of that would be addressed through CTE, federal, comp ed, et cetera. And then we'll give you real numbers here later this week.
And I'll need a little assistance from Jim Shealy on this, but the CTE funding can, depending on how the students are coded, can cover up to at least 80% of the cost, and sometimes the entire cost of that position. Also, all of the positions for special services and special ed, diag, speech, the federal is approximately 80% of the 80-20. So 20% local on that. So with the exception, the PACE teachers, those are all local dollars. And then the half of the FTE World Language Coordinator, we're seeing just such an expansion of that program. So that would be half of that. So that's a 0.5 FTE. So local dollars there, and then that's federal funding on the ESL coordinator, the expansion of that program. The RN, that nurse would be a floater position. We do have some very medically fragile children in the district, and so we need a nurse that if we have a nurse that's out for any reason, that we have the availability of not a substitute, just someone who's subbing in that position, but the need of an RN that would have the flexibility to assist with absences, and that would need to be locally funded, even though they may be serving students who are medically fragile, and we could probably recapture some of those dollars with federal dollars. We need that person to be able to serve any and all students. Does that answer some of the questions?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. All right, are there any other questions? Hearing none, then that concludes the reports item. And we'll move into action items without objections. The first one is action item 3A. And in order to provide a clear method to hear your vote on these items, I'll remind you of the steps that we'll be using. When making a motion or second, please include your name in the motion. For example, this is Steve Newcomb. I recommend approval of the item. For the vote, I will provide a roll call by trustee place. When voting, signify by yay or opposed. I'll respond to each vote, repeating your vote for clarification. For example, thank you, Dr. Tolbert. I've recorded your vote in favor of item 3A. At the end of the voting, I will report the vote count for confirmation, whether the vote carries or does not carry. Our first action item 3A is to award the contract for Lake Country Elementary School. Mr. Welch.
Yes, we'll start on page 69 on the Lake Country Elementary project. We had a competitive sealed proposal, CSP, that went out last month. We had 15 responders, which was a very high quality response on this project. In fact, I don't think we've ever had a total of 15. We felt very good about that. When we evaluate the bidding criteria, we look at 9 areas to evaluate the bids. And on page 70, you can see the 9 items that we look at and criteria. We used our district personnel and architect to go through these proposals. Obviously, with the CSP, the largest thing up front on this project was the price. When you look at the price, we had 6 bidders within $1 million spread of 15 people that are 15 construction groups that went out. When you look at what separates these top groups, I think you have to look at, and we did, we looked at the key project personnel, the subcontractors they're going to utilize, and the project experience. And in this project, this is those 3 things is what's going to separate our who we would recommend. So we factored in all those criteria, and after we got finished doing that, Pogue was our highest ranking contractor. They've been with the district before. They're currently working on the same elementary model, and the administration is recommending Pogue construction for the new elementary.
This is Donna. So moved.
Marilyn Tolbert, second.
Thank you, Donna Webb, for the motion. And the second, Marilyn, for the recommendation is to enter into negotiations for the contract with the construction of Lake Country Elementary School with the highest ranking contractor, Pogue Construction, in the amount of $24,850,000. In the event the district is unsuccessful in negotiating the contract with Pogue Construction, the board authorizes the administration to cease negotiations and move to the next highest ranking contractor or contractors until a contract can be successfully negotiated. Was that your motion, Donna Webb?
That's my motion.
And second, Marilyn?
Yes, sir.
All right. We'll now take a roll call vote. Dr. Marilyn Tolbert?
Yay.
Thank you, Dr. Tolbert, for your vote of yay on action item 3A. Hold on. Paige Ring?
Yay.
Thank you, Paige Ring, for your vote of yay on action item 3A. Tim Daughtry?
Yay.
Thank you, Tim Daughtry, for your vote of yay on action item 3A. William Bowes? William Bowes?
Yay, yay, yay.
Thank you, William Bowes, for your vote of yay on action item 3A. Liz Hatley?
Yay.
Thank you, Liz Hatley, for your vote of yay on action item 3A. Donna Webb?
Yay.
Thank you, Donna Webb, for your vote of yay on action item 3A. I, Stephen G. Newcomb, also vote yay on action item 3A. The motion carries 7-0.
Can I make one statement, Mr. Newcomb?
Please, Mr.
Daughtry.
Yes, go ahead.
I'd just like to say thanks to Cleed on coming with this, but just to keep it in perspective too, I just want to, and I know as Cleed and Dwayne and all of them evaluate our process, you know, just to keep in mind to make sure that we always go with who we think is going to be the best for the district, regardless of the price. I mean, we got into the price thing with all that security stuff and everything else on another bid. So I just appreciate them doing their due diligence on this stuff. And we know what Pogue brings to the table, and they've done a great job for us. But even if the price wasn't quite where we thought it might be at the time. You know, keep up y'all's work and don't necessarily let the price push us the direction that gets us into a situation like we were in with the security stuff before. So I appreciate what y'all are doing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Daughtry. We'll now move to agenda item 3B to designate a method of procurement for the security upgrades at the multiple campuses, gym night maintenance facility, and renovations. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Newcomb, board members, and Dr. Chadwell. We will be on, well, we're sort of on page 72. That was the original document. This item is for to designate the method of procurement for the security upgrades Mr. Daughtry was just mentioning, and then the expansion of the gym night maintenance facility. The revised document, I'm not exactly sure how to direct you over there. It's the if you open the very first screen of board book, there's an additional item at the bottom, and it'll be marked revised. The only change really is the original document we had was we were going to use the competitive sealed proposal as the procurement method, but after additional review and discussion about the complexity of the project, specifically the security portion of it, it was determined that construction manager at risk would be the more effective method for us to pursue on this particular project. So that is the recommendation of administration, is to use construction manager at risk for this project.
This is Donna, Webb, and I recommend that we designate construction manager at risk as the method that provides the best value for the district for security upgrades at multiple campuses in the gym night, maintenance facility additions, and renovations.
Liz Hatley, second.
Thank you, Donna Webb, for the motion, and Liz Hatley for the second to approve construction manager at risk as the best value for the district. We'll now take a roll call vote on agenda item 3B. Marilyn Tolbert.
Yay.
Thank you, Marilyn Tolbert, for your vote of yay on agenda item 3B. Paige Ring.
Yay.
Thank you, Paige Ring, for your vote of yay on agenda item 3B. Tim Daughtry.
Yay.
Thank you, Tim Daughtry, for your vote of yay on agenda item 3B. William Bowes.
Yay.
Thank you, William Bowes, for your vote of yay on agenda item 3B. Liz Hatley.
Yay.
Thank you, Liz Hatley, for your vote of yay on agenda item 3B. Donna Webb.
Yay.
Thank you, Donna Webb, for your vote of yay on agenda item 3B. I, Stephen G. Newcomb, also vote yay on agenda item 3B. The motion carries 7-0. Next is agenda item 3C. Consider the resolution delegating the authority to the superintendent to transfer funds to the activity account funds. Mr. Welch.
Good evening, President Newcomb, members of the board, Dr. Chadwell. Tonight we are bringing forth a resolution for your consideration. As provided on page 74, this proposed resolution defines a public purpose and grants authority to the superintendent to transfer general funds to a campus or student activity account in the event that we have a situation where the activity account comes up short in generating revenues, whether that be from having to issue refunds to participants for a canceled event or for a fundraiser that gets cut short and the related obligations are still outstanding. We see this as a proactive step as we continue to work with the ever-evolving scenarios during the pandemic. At this time, we have not identified any existing situations, but we know that campuses are still receiving refunds for deposits, for canceled events or travel. Furthermore, it is possible that our campuses may have some of those traditional events that they may still want to conduct, if even possible, before the end of this fiscal year, and realizing during this time of social distancing and in the pandemic, there could be an extra level of uncertainty in their ability to cover all costs among their participants and the current funding within their activity accounts. The delegation will allow the superintendent or their designee to work with campus principals to make sure or to make decisions on such events and provide a backup source of funding through the use of local funds in the general fund, including savings within their campus budgets if deemed necessary. Campuses would be requested to review all potential sources of funding before requesting the use of the local funds. And so with that understanding, I'd recommend that the board consider approving a resolution delegating the authority to the superintendent to transfer general funds to activity funds or activity account funds as presented.
This is Donna, and I move the board approve a resolution delegating authority to the superintendent to transfer general funds to the activity account funds as it was presented.
This is Marilyn Tolbert, second.
Thank you, Donna Webb, for your motion to approve, and Marilyn for your motion to second. We'll take a roll call vote. Any questions? I should have been asking that along. Any questions on this? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Marilyn Tolbert?
Yay.
Thank you, Marilyn Tolbert, for your vote of yay on agenda item 3C. Paige Ring?
Yay.
Thank you, Paige Ring, for your vote of yay on agenda item 3C. Tim Daughtry?
Yay.
Thank you, Tim Daughtry, for your vote of yay on agenda item 3C. William Bowes?
Yay.
Thank you, William Bowes, for your vote of yay on agenda item 3C. Liz Hatley?
Yay.
Thank you, Liz Hatley, for your vote of yay on agenda item 3C. Donna Webb?
Yay.
Thank you, Donna Webb, for your vote of yay on agenda item 3C. I, Stephen G. Newcomb, also vote yay on agenda item 3C. The motion carries 7-0. That brings us through the action item portion of the meeting, and this time we'll review the routine monthly reports. Are there any questions from trustees on any of our routine monthly reports? Hearing none, we'll move on to the 2020 board planning calendar. Dr. Chadwell.
Yes, on page 141 of your packet, you'll see tentative agenda items for the June 15th board meeting. First, I'll note June 15th will come very quickly. It's earlier in the month than it has been before. We do have a continuation of the finance reports with budget analysis and also a future calendar and actions sheet that Jim will provide to you. Also, we're starting to look at compensation plans a lot more closely. We've been reviewing what other districts are doing right now, and we would like to have a discussion regarding certain salary scenarios and recommendations that we may look at. We also have the annual athletic department annual report. We also have a quarterly demographic report. I did want to let y'all know that Templeton Demographics is doing some work regarding COVID-19 and analyzing and assessing how that will impact our enrollment for this next year. We also have an annual compensation report, the 2020-2021 JJAP MOU student testing, drug testing report, potentially an additional staffing proposal, although we do not predict at this time that would be as detailed or as lengthy as the one that you had tonight. It may be just a couple of other items that we're identifying right now. In addition, we're looking at the stipend proposal for the coaches that we talked about here a couple of months ago, and also there's another stipend report that goes along with that. Finally, a world languages report and InterQuest canine detection. And under action items, we have the advocacy agenda. No items have been provided regarding the TASB advocacy agenda. We also have the federal programs public meeting, and then any additional acts on bids and proposals.
Well, and hopefully we'll be back in person for that meeting, but I guess that'll be determined at a later date. Thank you, Dr. Chadwell. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
It's Tim Daughtry. I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Liz Hatley.
This is
second.
Donna Webb, second.
And a motion by Tim Daughtry and a second by Liz Hatley to approve the consent agenda. Dr. Marilyn, we'll have a roll call vote. Dr. Marilyn Tolbert.
Yay.
Thank you, Dr. Tolbert, for your vote of yay on the consent agenda. Paige Ring.
Yay.
Thank you, Paige Ring, for your vote of yay on the consent agenda. Tim Daughtry.
Yay.
Thank you, Tim Daughtry, for your vote of yay on the consent agenda. William Bowes.
Yay.
Thank you, William Bowes, for your vote of yay on the consent agenda. Liz Hatley.
Yay.
Thank you, Liz Hatley, for your vote of yay on the consent agenda. Donna Webb.
Yay.
Thank you, Donna Webb, for your vote of yay on the consent agenda. Stephen G. Newcomb also vote yay on the consent agenda. The motion carries 7-0. The next item on the agenda is for the board president's announcements. I had a couple of things just to mention to you. The summer leadership, as you may well know by now, but SLI is going to go virtual. So the TASB staff is going to create a virtual summer leadership institution program. They said since we've been, as districts, having to do this ourselves, they felt like they would put something together for us that's going to be June 24th through June the 26th. So it says details to be announced at a later date. We'll have to wait and see how that comes about. I know some of us had already registered, and as I understand from Becky, they were refunding our fees that we'd already paid. So they're going to come out with something later on that. Dr. Chapel?
Yes, just a few items. First thing, if you were a part of the Saturday's night Education Foundation Gala, it was a wonderful evening. What a challenge it is not to be able to come together for all of our various awards programs, but they did an incredible job bringing all the different students together virtually, and also creating videos for our top 10 from our high schools to be able to recognize them and also recognize our teachers that they selected. It was really a nice evening, and just enjoyed all the efforts that went into that. Very proud of those students. Likewise, there's a lot of awards and recognitions right now that are happening at our elementary, middle, and high schools. We have discussed that as a leadership team, just really sharing best practices with each of our schools at various grade levels, just to make sure that we're taking the opportunity to recognize students. And there's a lot of great examples out there. I'll be a part of a clap out at Northbrook next week, and those are happening at various schools. We have awards programs where they're actually taking the show on the road to the students' homes to recognize them. Again, at every grade level, it's tough because there are certain things you can't do the same way, and we know that. But people are trying to really make the best of it, considering the challenges. Also, a little bit about graduation. I know you're aware of the information we've shared with you about graduation. We worked very hard to put this graduation ceremony on at Ranger Stadium at Chisholm Trail High School. Sean Bell has done a great job organizing a team. I could start thanking people, but it would go on for about 2 or 3 minutes because there's just so many people involved with making this happen. And we are looking forward to that day, and very proud of our community's ability to come together and to do that in person. So it'll be a wonderful evening, and we're looking forward to it. Last thing is just summer programming. And we know the governor came out today and made some additional announcements. One of those announcements was the ability to have certain programming in June for summer school. The challenge, however, is the limitation that you can't require anybody to attend. And also, we haven't made our decision fully if we would want to do that in person or not. So we are continuing with our virtual plan. We'll be providing you information on all those various programs that we'll be providing for enrichment, but also for remediation. And so we're putting all that together, and we'll start communicate that very soon to students and to parents. But also, unfortunately, we can't have some of our other enrichment, extracurricular, fine arts, academic, and athletic camps. It is a real challenging time, as we're aware. We're keeping our ears open for all the changes at the state level, and we'll be responding to those as quickly as we can, but not too quick, because we need to make sure that we have all of our plans in place before we start opening our doors again. We know there's a lot of conversations right now about next year, about how we start start the school year. And we will be putting together some information to share with you. But I will be very careful not to have conjecture and start to imagine what will happen without better information, because obviously we have limitations at the state level, at the local level, and those are things we have to consider as we put any kinds of plans together whatsoever. I will tell you that there's a lot of work happening behind the scenes, regardless of what the results are come August. So obviously we're hopeful for a safe environment and that we're able to reopen as normal, but we also know the reality is we have to look at a lot of different probabilities in our planning. And so that information will be forthcoming to you, and we thank you for all your support during this challenging time.
Thank you, Dr. Chadwell. We appreciate your continued work on leading the district through these challenging times. It is currently 6:35 p.m. on Monday, May 18th, 2020. The board will adjourn to closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act: 551.071, purpose of consultation with board's attorney; 551.072, purpose of deliberating a purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property; 551.074, purpose of deliberating the appointment, employment, reassignment duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee; 551.075, for the purpose of deliberations regarding security, including a review of the district's emergency operating procedures; 551.082, considering discipline of a public school child or complaint or charge against personnel. Board will take about a 5-minute break before we begin that meeting. Other participants may remain on this phone line, and the board will return to this phone line immediately following the executive session. All right, this is a public meeting of the Board of Education of the Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD. The board is reconvening the public meeting on Monday, May 18th, 2020 at 7:08 p.m. With no further business, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Roll call, Donna. Hold on. I think I have to take roll call and then I'll do the motion to adjourn. Sorry. Dr. Tolbert,
Present.
Paige Ring,
Present.
Tim Daughtry,
Present.
William Bowes,
Present.
Liz Hatley,
Present.
Donna Webb.
Present, and I move we adjourn.
Thank you, Donna. Let the record show that a quorum is here.
Second.
Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present and that Donna Webb made the motion to adjourn and Liz Hatley seconded it. We'll now vote on the motion to adjourn. Dr. Tolbert.
Yay.
Thank you, Dr. Tolbert, for your vote of yay to adjourn. Paige Ring.
Yay.
Thank you, Paige Ring, for your vote of yay to adjourn. Tim Daughtry.
Yay.
Thank you, Tim Daughtry, for your vote of yay to adjourn. William Bowes.
Yay.
Thank you, William Bowes, for your vote of yay to adjourn. Liz Hatley.
Yay.
Thank you, Liz Hatley, for your vote of yay to adjourn. Donna Webb.
Yay.
Thank you, Donna Webb. Your vote of yay to adjourn. I, Steve Newcomb, also vote yay to adjourn. We're adjourned. 7